What's up, y'all? It's JS Method, or y'all may know me as Coach JS, and today we're talking about information gathering. It's one of the most common micro mistakes, and it's one of the most important fundamentals, especially in the mid-elo range. Now, information gathering kind of encapsulates quite a few mechanics, including map awareness, camera control, and other small stuff like hitting tab that we're going to take a look at today. So, step one to information gathering is map awareness. And the reason information gathering, before I start on any of the lecturing, the reason information gathering is so important is because you cannot be expected to make the correct decision if you don't have all of the available information. If you don't have all of the available information, your decision making cannot be expected to be high elo, right? So it's very common that I will coach silver or gold players that know what to do, but they are not giving themselves the opportunity to express what they know. And it's like, you have to look at the map and you have to move your camera or it doesn't matter. So information gathering is so incredibly important. Now, step one to information gathering is map awareness. Literally just looking at your map down here. This is like information gathering 101. This is the very first basic to information gathering we need to get down. Now, how do we get better at this? Map awareness is something that we constantly just want to have our eyes to. So I recommend turn your map size above 50, over 50. I think if it gets above 85, it starts to get too big. So maybe I'll even write anywhere from 50 to 85 is good. So it's big enough so you actually remember to see it. And then the way that a lot of people actually get into the mechanic of constantly looking at it, because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to constantly look at it. We'll set an interval timer. Interval timer. Now, in a lot of my other videos, I've mentioned the interval timer. And basically what this is, it's just a timer that goes off for a certain amount of time you set off. So for map awareness, I recommend a 5-second interval. So every 5 seconds, you'll hear a beep or a click or whatever. And then whenever that beep goes off, your brain can go, okay, every 5 seconds, which we're going to hear a beep. Then we're going to look at the mini map. Look at map, right? And that's how we're going to ingrain this. And then over time, your brain will just learn to do this without the beep, right? So that's the goal. So map awareness is super, super, super important. This is step one to information gathering. We have to get this down. Do it with an interval timer, do it with the game timer, or, there are other habits that you can get into to look at your map. Like, you can set a rule for yourself. Every time you auto attack, you're going to glance at your map, or every time you last in a minion, every time you trade, whatever, look at your map, please, constantly. That's step one. So step two, now this is like looking at the map plus, is moving your camera. Now, when we talk about camera control, there's actually two parts. There's kind of this, there's this bigger macro part, I call it, which is camera panning. And that's what I'm talking about in this video. The other thing is smaller micro camera movement. I call this camera control in lane. It's smaller, and it's kind of, it's the very flicky stuff you see where you flick it over so you can see what's down here, and then you hit spacebar and then that kind of thing. Now that is an important mechanic, and like not playing lock screen, that kind of thing, knowing when to lock your screen, when to hit spacebar, that kind of thing. That's an important mechanic, but that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about information gathering. So I'm just going to cross this out. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the macro camera panning, moving your camera from here to top lane or to bot lane or to your jungler. That's camera panning, and that's the step two of information gathering. So, and ideally we're using F keys for this. F keys, what they do is they instantly snap your camera. They're just a lot faster. That's the ideal way we can do it. But really, the important rule is, now that we've learned how to look at our map, anytime you see anything, you move your camera to it. And it's super important to move your camera because the mini map doesn't give you all of the information you need. When we move our camera, we see things like resources, we see cooldowns used, we see like ultimates and flashes and all of this stuff. We see body language. Body language tells us a lot in League, whether they're going up or back. It tells us wave state really easily because we can see the minion HP values and we can see which way it's going and who's hitting the wave, that kind of thing. It tells us so much about what's happening, how close they are to being done with their camp, what side they're moving to, all of these things that are a lot harder or that we can't see on the minimap, we see really fast when we just move our camera there. So move your camera there. So look at any interaction, right? So this is a habit you guys can get into. If you see any interaction, if you see any fight happening, or if you see any trade happening, or if you see the enemy jungler anywhere, you're going to look at it. So that's a habit that we can ingrain. Interaction, look at it with your camera, like move your camera there. The other thing is, before we roam, now this is super common for my mid laners and my junglers, we'll just gank and roam without looking. And it's like, oh my goodness. Again, you cannot like make a valid roam decision without giving yourself all of the available information. So look, so if you want to roam, if roaming, look before you move. This is one of the most like common biggest problems I see with my silver and gold players is we're just constantly moving without looking. It's like, goodness gracious, you cannot go bottom without moving your camera there first. So move your darn camera. One thing that I like to illustrate is like the more opportunity you look for, the more you will see, right? So if you're thinking, you know, JS, you know, I play an assassin, I want to roam a lot, but I don't know when to get my roams off, just move your camera. There are roam opportunities and you will see them if you move your camera there. I promise you. So once we get comfortable looking at our mini map and we have a feel for what's going on, now we're going to start kind of getting more specific and moving our camera to the things that we want to move it to. Now, again, ideally you use it with F keys because these are really, this is advanced though. What F keys do is they allow you to do it a lot quicker and they allow your cursor to stay in a good spot. So you're, you actually don't waste as much time and you can stay high APM and high mechanics in your lane. So you get to do it at more opportunities. But if you're below like platinum or diamond, I wouldn't really worry about it. This is more an advanced mechanic. But the biggest thing is move your darn camera. So that's really important. And that's kind of like step 2 to the map awareness thing. Now, the last thing I wanted to cover is really just like other small things are also involved in this. How much you hit tab is super important. At the beginning of the game, making sure you know the runes, like at least the big rune, right? Conqueror or Comet or Lethal Tempo or Airy, right? What are they going? And then the summoners are going. I can't tell you how many times people die because they're like, oh, I didn't know my lane opponent went exhaust. And it's like, literally, just every time you load into a game, hit tab and check. And then you can check starting items and all that kind of thing, right? If somebody starts tier, they're a lot more abusable than if they start D-ring. Or if somebody starts Dark Seal, they're a lot more abusable than if somebody starts whatever else. And then you always want to be hitting tab. Every time you back, or in every time your opponent backs and then gets back into lane, you want to hit tab to see what items they bought. So you can kind of assess, okay, this is what they bought, this is how strong they are, right? And this is what I bought, this is how strong I am. So constantly be hitting tab, especially when people are resetting. You always want to know when the next objective is, right? Like you want to know when Dragon's coming up, when Herald's coming up, when Baron's coming up. Hit tab so you know these things. And then summoner timers are nice as well, and those just get timed out in chat usually. But the point is, constantly be hitting tab. If you watch a high elo stream, you see them just like spamming tab, like almost sporadically. So hit tab, make sure we're paying attention. As a general rule, do it every time you back, and then every time your opponent backs as well, right? So if you're playing mid, every time you back, and then every time your opponent backs, hit tab, check the items you guys get, check the relation to your back in relation to these objective timers, and all that kind of thing. So I hope this video was helpful. This is a really fundamental camera control, like map information gathering is the most common mistake that I see from my silver and gold guys. It's the biggest mechanic that we can work on. So I hope this helped. Let me know if you guys have any ideas for tomorrow's video. I appreciate you guys watching. Leave feedback down in the comments. Have a blessed night. Peace.